So let's go to my course now. It's called How to Be a Gender Trainer. I gave it this practical title because it's a super practical course. You really will learn how to be a gender trainer. I know that many of you already are trainers, and it's not only for people who have never done any training. Anyone who hasn't trained before is most welcome to come. Most people have to do or have had to do already in their role some kind of training or facilitation or delivering content. And one of the things that people say when they finish this course is, I really liked it and it helped me to be a better trainer, but it also helped me in other ways. It helped me to be more confident in my delivery, it helped me with my communications, and it helped me to handle difficult conversations in the workplace and in my organizations better. So that's what I try to really give you with this course, it's not just about what can I learn about training specifically, but you can apply what you learn in the course to lots of different areas. So I'm going to start with a reflection. Here's the Menti. If you want to use your phone, there's the QR. Otherwise, it's menti.com 26713071. And I invite you to reflect. How would you expect to feel at the end of a feminist learning experience? You should see now the question when you open the Menti: how would you expect to feel at the end of a feminist learning experience? If you're not able to access Menti, please just write in the chat. You also have the link, thank you, Martina, in the chat. There's a direct link there. So you can think about this both in terms of how you would like to feel as a trainer at the end of this course, or just in general. If you participated in a training that was truly really feminist, how would you want to feel? Even if the training was on, for example, gender responsive budgeting or feminist AI. So while you're still reflecting on this, I'll share some of your answers. More confident and relaxed. So I think that applies to both if you were to participate in how to be a gender trainer, but I think at the end of any gender training, you should come away, a good feminist training, you should come away feeling more confident about what you've learned. And also, I think relaxed is a good word because I truly believe that we don't learn well when we're stressed. We don't learn well when we are under pressure, and we don't learn well when we don't have simple things like enough breaks to be able to really appreciate the learning and be present in the moment. So I think relaxed is a really good answer there. Empowered, informed, and reflective. I like that. So when people leave our trainings, this is how we want them to feel. I really like this combination of words. So I've left this training on whatever your specialist area is, let's say gender responsive budgeting, and my colleagues who I delivered it to feel powered, informed, and also reflective that they've thought about some things as well, that they've learned some things which challenged them. The language and concepts to frame my intuitions and experience so far. Yeah, I like that. So I think that's maybe from someone who's already done some training. And a lot of people come along with this as well. They're kind of like self-taught. I mean, I think most of us are self-taught in many ways in what we do, because there isn't really this kind of official certification for gender expertise. We have, for example, the Gender Pro certificate, but in terms of being specifically gender equality trainers, there isn't anything such as so close to a full professional certification. And so I think a lot of people are doing this. We kind of know that we're sort of more or less doing it right, but we don't necessarily have the theory and the concepts behind it. And that's exactly what we cover here in this course. So what do feminist pedagogies really mean? What are the core foundations that I need in order to just be able to be confident about the way that I've been working up to now? This is nice. New knowledge and tools to face equality issues. We deal with quite a lot of challenging challenging questions, challenging topics that you might want to train on, and we create a collaborative space, a peer learning space where we really share with each other. Okay, I'm really struggling with this problem, with this issue, and I don't know how to get it across. So we work on that as well. And a sense of community, as Michelle said, we have a follow-up session with all trainers. And I'm just about to run a big session. I run 2 a year with all alumni of How to Be a Gender Trainer. This will be the 9th time that I've run this course. So we have also twice a year a session with everyone who's attended is invited, and then you get locked into this really, really interesting group of peer trainers working all over the world in different topics. Empowered, great. I think that's how our training participants should feel when they leave. Ready to handle pushback confidently. I think this is very good. I think picking our battles is also a really good thing to learn. And I feel like when you have some space to actually think about, when you have 5 days to think about how you work on training and facilitation with either your colleagues internally or externally, we really have time to think about, okay, what's the best way to handle this? What can I do? And what can I not do? What do I let go? Great. Inclusive feminist approaches. This is helpful. I think that often we think that we are being inclusive because we feel like we're inclusive. It goes back a little bit to Michelle's thing about like this idea that, you know, that there are good people. We're just good people trying to do good work. And I think often because we believe ourselves to be inclusive, we think that our training is inclusive. And in fact, we learn in this training a lot of very specific things about how we can be and how training can be delivered in a way that is not inclusive as all. So many things like internet bandwidth, the kinds of software that you use, the language that you use, and what questions do you need to ask in advance of a training to make sure that it's really inclusive? How can we support people with neurodiversity to get the most out of these learning experience? So neurodiverse people. So you know, we have lots of different ways that we need to really tackle these in a practical way to make sure that all of our learners benefit from our space, not just learners who respond well to a certain kind of input or a certain kind of activity. Yeah, I like this. Excited and ready to engage with non-feminists. And I think it's really good to learn how do we learn how we can be our most effective, really, in these small spaces of opportunity that we have as trainers. What is it that we can really do? And what can't we do? And I think by being realistic about what we can achieve, we become much more confident when we're clear about our learning objectives and we're clear about what is it that we really need to do in this. And we're able to stick to that. That's how you become a competent engager and leave your participants feeling capacitated and positive at the end of their training. We want to feel like we're making a difference. I like this. We talk a lot about the importance of monitoring and evaluation of training. I think training gets a very bad reputation because often training is seen as someone coming in from the outside or from another department, delivering a presentation for 2 hours and then leaving, and then we tick a box. So we talk a lot about what training is not. So training is not a presentation. It is not a PowerPoint presentation. And we can discuss this, but usually for me, anything under one full day shouldn't be considered training. So these are the kinds of questions that we discuss so that we can be confident and say, for example, well, I can do you a 2 hour presentation, but it won't be a training and we wouldn't expect it to have an impact. So the impact that you expect to have is proportional to the amount of time that you are given to deliver this training in. And also, not just that, but the number of people, the number of participants. So there are many things that you can do to maximize the impact of your training. And we also talk a lot about how do we measure the impact of our training. So being realistic about what kind of impact we can have is a kind of first step really towards making an impact. And then how do we measure that? Audacious. Oh, I love that this word is here because a friend said to me the other day that this was going to be her word of the year, audacity. And I also mentioned it this morning in a session with someone that is mentoring me. And I said, oh, I think I like this word. So I'm so happy to see this come up here. Audacious. I love that word. I think we are not audacious enough in our work. More confident and well equipped to tackle patriarchal tendencies. And I think that really comes from not just a confidence in ourselves as individuals, but what I like to call our gender training persona. So we have our authentic self, which is our intimate self, and then there's something else which we can um, cultivate for when we're in a gender training scenario, just to put a little bit of distance between our most intimate self and the person that is out there really putting themselves out there and in these situations where we know that there could be some very challenging conversations, that we might be dealing with patriarchy, racism, discrimination within the training scenario itself. So I think that what I try to help you with is to construct your own training persona. What kind of trainer do I want to be? Which parts of myself do I want to really enhance? And how do I develop this? Because it's one of the things that's most challenging about putting yourself out there as a trainer is how to not take things personally and how to not become defensive. And these things, there are challenging situations that arise, sometimes challenging in terms of content, sometimes in terms of methodology. So how can we be well equipped and confident in this way to be able to deal with these situations? The sense of solidarity, I think, is really important between gender specialists, between feminists. We need this now more than ever. I think it's very enriching to connect with people who are working in different countries, different organizations, on different topics as well. So that's something that we're trying to cultivate with Fabulous Feminists, and also with this How to Be at this Gender Trainers network that is kind of informally developing. Better equipped to change the patriarchal system. Yes, love it. And I really think that the best way that we can be equipped is by knowing what are our strengths, how best can I use my energy, and how can I be really effective in the short time that I have in this space. So it might be a training space of 2 days that you've got with the Human Resources Department to deliver a training on gender bias in recruitment because they're failing in gender parity. Your organization is failing in gender parity, for example. So you've got a day. What is the best use of that day? How can you really design that day to have the biggest impact on changing recruitment practices in your organization with the overall aim of increasing gender parity in senior management, for example? So it's really about, I'll teach you how to think through the different stages of developing the most effective training in order to be able to deal with this. And then also just to remember that it's just a day with the human resources team, probably not going to achieve gender parity by the end of the day. So what are realistic goals that we can set? and what are realistic learning objectives. Yeah, I think this is really nice. I think we can feel really lonely in this work. And again, it's part of this feeling, this knowing that we work in these atomized ways that's been had Fabulous Feminist brewing for quite a long time. Because I mean, I first published on this in 2015, I think, on This Is Our Gender Person, and it's kind of about that loneliness of being the gender specialist and thinking that you're fighting against it all the time. So I think as feminists, we tend to do this in our activism, but I think we do it less in our professional lives. I think most of us have a few great contacts who we text and we go every now and again when we need our help. But I think it's to grow that professional network is something that I think is really helpful. Empowered, excited, and ready to learn more. Okay, great. So we have some really good answers here. And so really what I would like to do is help you to be able to deliver the kinds of learning experiences that you would like to have for yourselves. So what you think would be a high quality experience from a feminist learning experience, I want you to feel confident to be able to deliver a high quality feminist experience as well as all the other aspects. So what do we do in this course? What will you learn? These are my learning objectives. We talk a lot about learning objectives. It's a very, it's pretty much the thing that you probably hear me say most in the training is stick to your learning objectives, be clear about your learning objectives. Don't let yourselves get distracted from the learning objectives. That's what you're there to do, deliver the learning objectives. So these are our learning objectives for our 5 days together. Understand the theoretical and conceptual foundations of gender training. Acquire the basic schools, tools and skills needed. So we look at the training script, we look at the program, we look at how you select, how you conduct a learning needs assessment, what kind of pre-questionnaire you need to send, all of these kinds of things, evaluation. We look at quality standards in the field. As I said, there is no certification for gender trainers right now, or even for gender professionals, apart from perhaps the Gender Pro certification. So what are the quality standards that currently exist? Do we agree with them? Can they be improved? How can we contribute to that? And we look at some of the core challenges. These are ever ongoing. So for example, dealing with resistances is something that can come up a lot in training scenarios. And sometimes we find that they are not just about the training itself, but they could be about many different things, and then always about gender equality. Sometimes they're about different things. So we play some games around things like sea lioning. I don't know if you know the term sea lioning, but it's someone who consistently plays devil's advocate in a way, in a bad faith way. So we learn techniques for dealing with those kinds of situations. Also, how do we deliver good quality virtual training? And how can we be confident virtual trainers? This has probably happened in many of your organizations, but UN Women has just put a blanket ban on in-person trainings until further notice. So again, just as we were moving into our starting back with in-person training, I think we're going to find more and more that we'll be asked to move back into virtual. And I think that so I really encourage people to be confident virtual trainers, but not just to be confident. I don't think virtual training should be a consolation prize. I think we need to be really clear that we can deliver really high quality virtual trainings. And I hope you will take that away from your experience as well. And we also do loads of practice. So you work in pairs, you develop an activity, you run that activity, we have a structured feedback program. So you are really working strongly together in this kind of peer network. You work with a partner, and then also we have a really strong peer review mechanism. So we learn a lot, we put into practice during the time that we're together, everything that we learn, and then we reflect on it, and we kind of integrate between the practice. Okay, let's go back to the theory, let's go back to some of the things that we've learned. Our approach is very much learning by doing. Everything about the course is practical, but you do also get a lot of theoretical input. You will have a lot of theoretical work to do as well as practical work. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It's a very horizontal learning environment. It's a collective and reflexive. I also have a kind of an additional aspect whereby, as a very experienced trainer, I tend to share my thoughts as I'm going along. So whereas if you attend one of my trainings, you would see something quite polished, you kind of see the background and the messiness that's going on behind. And I think that's very helpful because it makes you realize, oh gosh, okay, right, I don't have to be perfect. And also that, it's really about practice and experience. So I share with you often, okay, we did that activity, it didn't really work, did it? So I'm quite reflexive as well in the way that I go about the training. We like to learn from each other's mistakes, our own mistakes, and again, we have loads of time to put everything into practice. This content is what we will go through. I'd like to leave a little bit of time for questions, so I'm just going to go through this reasonably quickly, but the 4 pedagogical principles that I mentioned before, we do discuss in detail during the training, and when you come out, you should be confident at delivering training that meets all 4 principles. So we should be participatory, horizontal, and experiential. We build a feminist classroom. What is a feminist classroom? We talk about that a lot. And we also need to be fully inclusive and build in decoloniality with meaning, as Michelle has shared. And I look forward to improving my understanding and knowledge of decoloniality and decolonizing methods, and think about how I could integrate those better into my own work and my own trainings. We engage with personal and lived experience. So when you're doing a feminist training, you will be encouraging your participants to reflect on their own experiences of intersectioning inequalities and privilege. Some of the challenges can come up here. What about when the personal experience contradicts or contrasts with what you're trying to get across in the training? So if you have sexist opinions or racist opinions that are coming out, how do we deal with those situations? So at the one hand, we value personal experience, but that also brings challenges, which you don't get when you're giving a PowerPoint presentation, for example. How do we focus on impact, results, and change? So as part of a feminist project, we want to have some kind of change and be able to see that change. So how do we hold our participants accountable? How do we usually learn to have an action plan or something like that, and a follow-up session to really continue to build in this accountability to part of the training. So it's not just the participants attended a training, tick, done. It's much more meaningful than that. And it needs to be embedded in broader change process. For example, how is this training fit into the gender action plan of your organization? What actual capacity do your participants have to implement the knowledge that they gain? And how can we follow up and support them to implement that knowledge? And finally, how can we encourage participants to engage critically? How can we develop this critical thinking and open-mindedness? What kinds of activities, what kinds of approaches best promote this kind of learning? And also particularly in virtual trainings where people are tending to be multitasking, they're usually busy, they're often called away to a meeting at the last minute. How can we make our training so engaging that they don't want to be texting, they don't want to be doing something else, they want to be here with us now learning? So how do we really keep people's attention and get them to think critically so that they really take something meaningful away? So we talk about the typology, which means that there are different kinds of training and we develop our content accordingly. So we go through the typology of gender training, awareness raising, knowledge enhancement, and we talk about, well, what do these different things mean and what kinds of training can we fit within each of these areas? And also we try to be realistic about what we can achieve in terms of the feminist pedagogical principles for different kinds of training. Maybe you're not able to apply all 4 principles equally in every kind, and sometimes that's okay. So we take quite a pragmatic approach there. We look at the training cycle, so you come away with a really good knowledge of these theoretical foundations of what it means to be a high quality trainer. So just like the project cycle, we go through the training cycle, and we talk about the different aspects of that and how do we really integrate pedagogical principles at different stages, not just here in implementation, which is where we often focus, but rather what can we do at each stage in order to make sure that we're most likely to have an impact with our training. We have a preparatory session around 2 weeks before we start. So you'll meet the other participants, you can learn about each other and know a bit more about how things are going to work. On days 1 and 2 of the training, we look at the conceptual foundations, some of the core issues and key tools, the script, the training cycle, the very practical aspects. And then you start already to deliver your activities and plan and deliver your activities with your partner. There's lots of time for that. We build the time in within the training. I'm there to support you and help you develop your activities. We deliver them, you have the peer review process. And then finally, we look at gender training as a field and profession. We look at gender transformative evaluation, and we do the learning reflections and next steps. There's also a follow-up session, which is 90 minutes, where you'll get to meet all the colleagues again. I'm running the follow-up session for the last How to Be a Gender Trainer in 2 weeks' time, where we'll get together. Okay, so what have you done? Share your successes, what are your still challenges, and where do you need help in terms of your career in moving forwards with this. So that's what you get in terms of the package. These are the dates. I've split it into 2 weeks this time because it's nice to have that break in between. You get some time to reflect and come back and deliver your activities and come back with more questions. So really, I hope that if you take this training, you will gain the skills, tools, and confidence needed to deliver high quality intersectional feminist training.